I'm not exactly sure why I agreed to house sit for my cousin, but looking back, it might be one of the worst decisions I've ever made. It was early October, the kind of crisp fall evening where the wind carries that faint smell of wet leaves and distant chimneys. My cousin, Chris, had recently bought a property out near Deadwater Creek, a place I'd never heard of. He said it was peaceful and good for getting away from the city. The drive out there took almost 4 hours from my apartment in Philadelphia. By the time I turned onto the long gravel road that supposedly led to his house, the sun had dipped completely, leaving only a sliver of orange fading behind the trees. The road was narrow, hemmed in by tall pines that seemed to lean over me. My headlights barely seemed to cut through the darkness. When I finally pulled up to the house, I realized property was an understatement. It was an old 2-story colonial-style home, probably built in the 1800s. The kind with creaky shutters, a wide porch, and windows that reflected nothing but black. Behind it, I could hear the faint rush of the creek, though I couldn't see it in the dark. Chris had left me a note taped to the door. "Make yourself at home. Don't go into the basement. Back by Monday." I thought he was joking. Inside, the house smelled faintly of dust and something else I couldn't quite place. Maybe damp wood. The interior was charming in that old country way. Wood floors, vintage furniture, and the occasional porcelain doll that seemed like it belonged in a horror movie. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat in the living room, scrolling through my phone. That's when I heard it. A soft knock came from somewhere in the house. Not the front door, not the side door, from inside. I froze, listening. The knocking came again, faint but deliberate, almost like it was coming from beneath me. The basement. I laughed nervously and told myself it was probably the old pipes settling. Still, I found myself avoiding the basement door that night. When I finally went to bed, the house seemed too quiet, like the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to a faint scratching sound from below. This time, I didn't get up to check. I just pulled the blanket over my head and prayed for morning. The next day, I decided to explore the property. Behind the house, the ground sloped down toward Deadwater Creek. The water was dark, almost black, and moved faster than I expected. There were no houses nearby, just woods on all sides. As I walked back toward the house, I noticed something odd. A patch of disturbed earth about 30 feet from the porch. The dirt was fresh, like someone had recently dug and refilled a hole. When I asked Chris about it over the phone, he paused for a second too long before saying, "Probably just an animal. Don't worry about it." That night, the knocking came back. Louder this time. It was rhythmic, slow, and definitely from the basement. I told myself I'd just check to prove it was nothing. The basement door was old, painted white with rusting hinges. When I opened it, a damp, earthy smell hit me like a wall. The stairs creaked as I descended, shining my phone flashlight ahead. The basement was huge but nearly empty, just a few old shelves and some covered furniture. The knocking stopped as soon as I stepped down. And then, from the far corner, I saw it. A section of the concrete wall had been broken through, revealing a tunnel of packed dirt leading into darkness. I should have gone back upstairs right then, but curiosity, or maybe stupidity, pulled me forward. The tunnel was narrow, forcing me to stoop. It smelled worse the further I went, a mix of rot and wet soil. About 30 feet in, I saw something half buried in the dirt. First, I thought it was an old piece of wood, but when I pulled it free, my stomach dropped. It was a human bone. Panic surged through me and I turned to head back, but that's when I heard the sound. Not knocking this time, but breathing. Slow, steady, coming from deeper in the tunnel. I bolted out of there, slamming the basement door behind me. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that breathing again. Around 2:30 a.m., I woke up to footsteps on the stairs. I grabbed a flashlight and crept to the top of the staircase. No one was there, but the front door was wide open, swaying in the wind. I locked it, checked every room, and finally returned to bed. That's when I saw something in the hallway. A figure, pale and thin, standing completely still. I blinked, and it was gone. On my last night there, the noises escalated. It wasn't just knocking or breathing anymore, it was voices. Low, murmuring voices from the basement, speaking in a language I didn't recognize. Against every instinct, I opened the basement door again. The voices stopped instantly, replaced by silence. I don't remember walking down the stairs, but suddenly I was in the basement, facing that tunnel. Something moved in the darkness, fast. Before I could run, something grabbed my wrist. It was ice cold and strong, pulling me toward the tunnel. I screamed, yanking free, and sprinted upstairs. I slammed the door, locked it, and shoved a chair under the knob. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room until the first light of dawn. 7. Aftermath. When Chris returned, I confronted him. He looked pale when I mentioned the tunnel. "It's older than the house," he said quietly. "They found bones when they built here, not animal bones." I moved out of the city a month later. I haven't spoken to Chris since. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear it, the slow, deliberate knocking. My name is Daniel Reed, and I swore I would never talk about this night. It's been 3 years since I walked into the Hollow Pines forest in northern Maine with my best friend, Alex. I'm not even sure I made it out. You might be wondering how I'm telling this story if I didn't. The truth is, I'm not sure either. All I know is, after that night, my life isn't mine anymore. That I grew up in a small town called Milford, Maine. A sleepy place with more pine trees than people. Every kid in town knew the stories about Hollow Pines, a stretch of dense forest about 20 minutes from the main road. People whispered about hikers going missing, strange sounds at night, and something locals called the Whistler. The Whistler was, well, no one really agreed on what it looked like. Some said it was a man with no face. Others swore it was an animal that could imitate human voices. But everyone agreed on one thing: if you heard it whistle, you didn't whistle back. One November evening in 2022, Alex came over with a stupid idea. "Alex, come on, dude. One night in Hollow Pines. We'll just check out that old burned cabin. Maybe shoot some video for YouTube." Me: "You're kidding, right? People have disappeared out there." Alex: "That's the point. Think about the views. We'll be in and out before midnight." I should have said no. I really should have. We parked my old Chevy pickup on the gravel pull-off near mile marker 19. The forest was already swallowing the light, the sky a dull gray under a thick sheet of clouds. We grabbed flashlights, a couple of energy drinks, and Alex's camera. The trail leading into Hollow Pines wasn't even a real trail, more like a gap between tree trunks, lined with dead leaves and frost. The deeper we went, the quieter it got. No birds, no wind, just the crunch of our boots and the occasional snap of a twig. "Alex, you feel that?" Me: "What, Alex?" "Like, the air's thicker here." He wasn't wrong. Felt heavy, like breathing through damp cloth. We were maybe 20 minutes in when it happened. A high, clear whistle, 3 notes, rising, came from somewhere ahead of us, faint but sharp. Me: "Okay, that's not funny." Alex: "Wasn't me. Could be another hiker." But my stomach dropped. The sound was too perfect, too controlled. We stood there listening. No footsteps, no voices, just the windless, suffocating silence. Finally, through the thick trees, we saw it, the burned cabin. Half the roof was gone, the walls blackened with soot. A rusted chimney stood like a gravestone in the middle. Inside, the floor was covered in damp ash and rotting wood. Graffiti covered the remaining walls, symbols I didn't recognize. Alex was filming, panning his flashlight across the inside. That's when we heard it again. The whistle, this time closer. We froze. Then a voice. It was my mother's voice, calling my name. A voice. "Daniel? Honey, is that you?" I felt my chest tighten. My mom was home in Milford. She'd never been here. Alex was looking at me with wide eyes. "Alex, You heard that, right? Before I could answer, the voice came again. This time from behind the cabin. We stepped outside. The beam of my flashlight cut through the trees. At first, I thought it was a person, tall, thin, wearing some kind of old coat. But as the light hit its face, there was no face. Just pale skin stretched over where features should be. Tilted its head and whistled. 3 perfect notes. Alex whispered, "Run." We bolted down the trail, branches tearing at our jackets. The thing didn't chase us, not the way I expected. Instead, the whistling followed us. Sometimes ahead of us, sometimes to the side. At one point, I swear I saw it standing between the trees 20 feet ahead, but when my flashlight blinked, it was gone. We made it back to the pull-off. Or, I thought we did. My truck was gone. In its place was an old, rusted station wagon. Flat tires, moss growing over the hood. The road itself looked different. Narrower, cracked, and covered in weeds. Me. Where the hell are we? Alex? This isn't possible, man. We didn't take any turns. That's when we heard footsteps behind us. We turned. It was standing in the middle of the road. No face, just pale skin. And it was closer than ever. It whistled, slow this time, almost sad. I don't remember what happened next. Just waking up in my bed the next morning, clothes muddy and torn. Alex? He never came back. The police searched for weeks. They found no trace of Alex, no burned cabin, no pull-off. But 2 days ago, I got a voicemail. It was 3 perfect notes. I hadn't been back to Miller's Hollow in nearly a decade. The place was quiet, too quiet for my liking, but it was home. I came back because my mother wasn't doing well, and Dad had passed 2 years ago. The drive through those endless Pennsylvania woods always gave me the creeps. Towering pines on both sides, their branches blocking out the sun, and that strange sense that someone was always watching. When I was a kid, Dad used to warn me about Miller's Woods, a stretch of forest behind our property. You can go anywhere, son, but not past the old fence line. Things out there aren't right. I always thought it was just one of those small-town legends. Until now. I arrived in the late afternoon. Mom was asleep, her breathing labored. The house smelled faintly of dust and old wood. Out back, I noticed the old fence was still there, broken in a few places, swallowed by weeds. That night, while unpacking, I heard it. Faint whistle. Not a bird, not the wind, it was deliberate. Like someone standing just beyond the tree line, calling me. When I looked outside, there was nothing but darkness. The next morning, I ran into Earl, our old neighbor. He was in his late 60s now, with a face like weathered leather. He didn't smile when he saw me. "Your dad ever tell you what happened out there?" he asked, nodding toward the woods. I shook my head. Earl leaned in, whispering, "A logging crew went missing in '92. Sheriff searched for weeks. Nothing but torn equipment and blood in the snow. My brother swore he saw something. Tall, thin, wrong." He gripped my arm. "If you hear it whistle, don't answer." That night, I woke at 2:47 a.m. to the sound of footsteps on the porch. Slow, heavy, but not quite human. The whistle came again. Louder, closer. I grabbed Dad's old hunting rifle and peeked through the blinds. That's when I saw it. It was tall, over 8 feet. Its skin pale gray, stretched tight over bones. Its arms were far too long, fingers almost scraping the porch floor. And its head, it was wrong. Bent forward. No eyes, just a gaping mouth that formed the shape of a whistle without moving its lips. Then it stepped off the porch and melted into the trees. The next day, I tried telling Earl, but he just nodded like he already knew. He told me about the logging site deeper in the woods, now abandoned. Said if I really wanted answers, that's where I'd find them. So I went. The trail was overgrown, the air colder than it should have been. I found rusted saws, collapsed cabins, and claw marks gouged into tree trunks at least 12 feet high. That's when I heard the whistle again, this time behind me. I ran. Branches tore at my clothes. Roots nearly tripped me. But the sound followed, never closer, never farther. like it was hurting me. Finally, I stumbled into a clearing and froze. In the snow were footprints, human at first, then they stretched, distorted, becoming something else entirely. I made it home just before dark. Mom was awake now, her voice weak. She whispered, "Your father saw it too. That's why he never went back there." The third night was the worst. The whistle began at dusk and didn't stop. It circled the house, coming from different directions, faster and faster. At 3:15 a.m., the back door creaked open. I aimed the rifle and saw it step inside. Its head scraped the ceiling, mouth still forming that awful sound. But now, I could hear words hidden in the whistle. My name. It lunged. I woke in the woods. No rifle, no shoes, just cold air and that endless whistle. Somehow, I made it back home by sunrise. Mom was gone. No sign of her, no sign of struggle. Just the back door swinging open. Earl hasn't seen me since. But every night when I try to sleep, I hear it. Closer, calling me back.